I stood in my parents' sprawling backyard, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the familiar lawn. My sister, Natalie, 2 years my senior and radiating a characteristic air of self-importance, was orchestrating a gathering for what promised to be her special announcement. A familiar, acidic knot tightened in my stomach as I observed Natalie's smug smile, a smirk honed over 2 decades of relentless rivalry. It seemed that, even after all these years, Natalie still possessed an uncanny ability to inflict emotional pain. What she didn't know, what she couldn't possibly fathom in her self-absorbed world, was that while she was meticulously preparing to publicly humiliate me, I held the very keys to Natalie's long-coveted dream lakefront property, nestled securely in my pocket. Sometimes, I mused, revenge wasn't about wanton destruction, about burning bridges and salting the earth. It was about teaching someone a profound, unforgettable lesson, a truth etched into their very being that they would carry forever. Before I tell you how I masterfully turned the tables on my sister's subtle cruelty, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from, and hit that subscribe button if you've ever battled a truly toxic family member. Growing up as the younger sister to Natalie Reynolds was akin to existing in a permanent, suffocating shadow. From the very day I was born, it felt as though my existence was inextricably linked to a relentless competition I had never willingly signed up for. Natalie, perpetually 2 steps ahead, had, as far back as I could recall, been absolutely determined to outshine me in every conceivable way. Our childhood home in suburban Connecticut, though comfortable and nurturing, was never extravagant. My father, Mr. Reynolds, worked diligently as an engineer, while my mother, Mrs. Reynolds, taught elementary school, instilling in us solid, middle-class values: work hard, save money, and always be kind to others. Somehow, those fundamental lessons seemed to land differently with each of us, interpreted through vastly different lenses. I was always the practical, grounded one. While other teenagers squandered their hard-earned babysitting money on fleeting makeup trends and trendy clothes, I meticulously saved for college, my future already mapped out. My room was always impeccably organized, my grades consistently excellent, and I had meticulously crafted a 5-year plan before I even set foot in high school. Nothing flashy, nothing ostentatious, just consistent effort and unwavering determination. Natalie, on the other hand, developed expensive tastes at a remarkably young age. She craved designer labels, dreamed of exotic vacations, and demanded constant, external validation for her every move. Where I saw intrinsic value in diligent hard work and the wisdom of delayed gratification, Natalie fixated solely on outward appearances and immediate, superficial status. She wasn't inherently malicious as a child, perhaps just deeply insecure and desperately hungry for attention, a craving that often manifested in destructive ways. The first instance I vividly recalled Natalie taking credit for my hard-won efforts was in 4th grade. I had poured weeks of my young life into a science project about ecosystems, meticulously crafting a detailed terrarium that my teacher, Ms. Evans, had lauded as college-level work, a true marvel. When Parents' Night arrived, a whirlwind of proud families and bustling activity, I overheard Natalie brazenly telling her friends that she had helped me with all the hard parts because I simply couldn't understand the science. I was deeply hurt, a silent wound, but in my characteristic way, I said nothing. That became their insidious pattern, Natalie taking, me retreating, a silent, unspoken power dynamic solidified. By high school, this destructive dynamic was firmly established. Natalie would perpetually find insidious ways to diminish my genuine achievements or, even worse, brazenly claim them as her own. When I was accepted to Cornell University on a partial scholarship, a testament to my academic prowess, Natalie unashamedly informed extended family that she had coached me through the entire arduous application process. When I graduated with honors in business, a triumph of dedication, Natalie somehow managed to spin the narrative, making it sound as though my success was merely following in her footsteps, an echo of her own supposed, yet non-existent, greatness. Even though Natalie herself had dropped out of community college after a single chaotic semester, my parents, blinded by affection or perhaps simply seeking peace, never fully recognized the pervasive, damaging pattern. My father would gently suggest I not be so sensitive, while my mother stubbornly insisted that Natalie merely expresses herself differently. They undoubtedly loved both their daughters, but they had inadvertently enabled Natalie's toxic behavior for years, perhaps finding it simpler to placate her demands than to confront her subtle, yet persistent, manipulations. After graduating from college, I embarked on the arduous journey of building my e-commerce business from the ground up, a solitary endeavor fueled by ambition and grit. I meticulously identified a significant market gap in sustainable home goods and tirelessly worked 16-hour days, forging invaluable relationships with ethical manufacturers across the globe. The first 2 years were brutal, a relentless grind. I survived on ramen noodles in a tiny, cramped studio apartment, pouring every single penny I earned back into the fledgling business, a testament to my unwavering belief in my vision. Natalie, meanwhile, drifted aimlessly between a succession of low-paying retail jobs, always quitting abruptly when they became too demanding or, in her inflated estimation, beneath her talents. Then, miraculously, my business took off, experiencing a meteoric rise. By year 3, I proudly commanded a team of 10 dedicated employees and had tripled my revenue, a staggering accomplishment. By year 5, I was prominently featured in Entrepreneur magazine, lauded as one of the 30 under 30 to watch, a true rising star in the business world. Suddenly, Natalie, with audacious hypocrisy, was telling everyone how she had always believed in me and had given me the confidence to succeed, a blatant rewriting of history. At family gatherings, she meticulously positioned herself as my biggest supporter and unofficial business advisor, a performance worthy of an Oscar. I, learning the hard lessons of survival, learned to choose my battles wisely and, crucially, to keep my private life fiercely private, a guarded sanctuary from Natalie's intrusions. While Natalie, perpetually chasing an illusion of grandeur, rented a luxury apartment she could barely afford and leased a new BMW every 2 years, an endless cycle of financial strain. I lived modestly in a comfortable but unassuming townhouse and drove my reliable Honda into the ground, a symbol of my practical approach. I shrewdly invested in my retirement, diligently built a robust emergency fund, and meticulously created genuine financial security, a bulwark against life's uncertainties. Natalie, blissfully ignorant, simply assumed I was bad with money, rather than understanding my strategic, long-term approach. 3 years ago, during a family vacation to Lake Winnipesaukee in New Hampshire, a place of pristine beauty, Natalie became utterly obsessed with the stunning lakefront property. It boasted a private dock, panoramic views of the shimmering water, and a majestic 5-bedroom vacation home listed at a hefty $1.2 million, a sum far, far beyond her wildest financial means. Still, she spent the entire trip talking incessantly about her future lake house, taking endless photos of every single room during an open house, and meticulously making elaborate plans for hypothetical family gatherings she would host there. Every family event since had included her dramatic laments that someone else had bought her dream house, though she never possessed the financial wherewithal to seriously consider purchasing it. What no one in my family knew, however, was that my flourishing business had hit a temporary, yet severe, rough patch 6 months ago. A major supplier had unexpectedly gone bankrupt, leaving me with thousands of dollars in unfulfilled orders and a legion of angry, frustrated customers. Simultaneously, an unforeseen algorithm change on a major online marketplace had mercilessly slashed my visibility, severely impacting sales. It was a perfect storm, a confluence of unfortunate events, and while I, with my business acumen, knew it was temporary, my cash flow took a serious, immediate hit. I had to take out a short-term business loan to simply stay afloat, a testament to the unforeseen challenges of entrepreneurship. Natalie, with her uncanny knack for meddling, somehow discovered my financial challenges, probably by brazenly snooping through papers during a visit to my home. I had once caught her rifling through my mail, but, in my usual placating way, had dismissed it as harmless curiosity. I should have known better, should have recognized the deeper, more sinister intent. Then, last month, through a complete, almost unbelievable coincidence, the Lake Winnipesaukee house, Natalie's dream property, the one she spoke of incessantly, came back on the market. Its price was significantly reduced due to the owner's messy divorce, a stroke of fate. The moment I saw the listing, an idea began to form in my mind, a mischievous, daring, thought-taking route. It was risky, perhaps even petty, driven by years of unspoken resentment, but something deep within me simply couldn't resist the allure of this poetic justice. I immediately contacted the real estate agent and discovered that the owners were desperate for a quick sale, willing to accept $950,000 for a property unequivocally worth much more, a steal. I spent 3 sleepless nights, meticulously running numbers, engaging in hushed conversations with my financial advisor, and carefully weighing the profound consequences of such a bold move, both financially and ethically. Was I merely using my hard-earned money to teach my sister a painful lesson, or was this, finally, my long-awaited chance to establish firm boundaries that had been relentlessly crossed for decades? As I signed the preliminary paperwork, my hand steady despite the internal turmoil, I kept reiterating to myself that this wasn't about revenge, not truly. It was about finally standing up for myself after years of meekly allowing Natalie's toxic behavior to go unchecked, unchallenged. Still, a small, nagging voice of doubt wondered if I was inadvertently becoming exactly what I resented in my sister, someone willing to wield money as a weapon, a tool for control and dominance. The annual Reynolds family reunion was a cherished tradition stretching back generations, predating my very birth. Every summer, aunts, uncles, cousins, and grandparents would descend upon my parents' sprawling backyard in Connecticut for a day brimming with delicious food, nostalgic reminiscing, and, inevitably, a healthy dose of family drama. Usually, I genuinely looked forward to it, a rare chance to reconnect with my favorite cousins and proudly showcase new photos of my latest product line. This year, however, was starkly different. As I pulled into my parents' familiar driveway, my stomach churned with a mixture of anxiety and anticipation. My business troubles, though not catastrophic, were certainly not something I was eager to discuss, especially not with Natalie. I'd had to temporarily let go of 3 dedicated employees and scale back operations while painstakingly rebuilding my supply chain. To someone like Natalie, who understood business about as well as she understood quantum physics, these normal entrepreneurial challenges would undoubtedly appear as a complete, utter failure. I checked my phone one more time before getting out of the car. No message from the real estate agent yet about the closing. A deep breath. I grabbed the homemade appetizers from my passenger seat, a small offering of normalcy. Keeping up appearances, I knew, was paramount today. "Morgan, you finally made it." My mother, Mrs. Reynolds, rushed across the manicured lawn to greet me, her floral sundress fluttering gracefully in the warm summer breeze. She pulled me into a tight, familiar hug that smelled comfortingly of her signature perfume and sunscreen. "Everyone's already here. Even your cousin Jenna from Seattle made it this year." The backyard was, as it was every July, transformed into a vibrant party space. White folding tables arranged in a festive U-shape, red and blue balloons tied to chairbacks, and my father's prized grill smoking invitingly in the corner, its aroma mingling with the summer air. At least 40 relatives mingled across the lawn, plastic cups in hand, paper plates balanced precariously as they navigated from the overflowing food table to various clusters of animated conversation. "Where's Natalie?" I asked, attempting to sound casual as I carefully placed my appetizer contribution on the already groaning table. My mother's expression shifted subtly, a tiny flicker of something I couldn't quite decipher. Oh, she's around somewhere. Probably inside with Aunt Patricia. She's been acting mysterious all morning, says she has some big announcement to make later. The warning bells in my head grew louder, a persistent, unsettling clang. My mother must have noticed my expression because she quickly added, with forced cheerfulness, "I'm sure it's nothing." You know how she loves to create drama. Maybe she finally got that promotion at the department store. I nodded and forced a tight, brittle smile. Yeah, probably. As I made my way through the buzzing crowd, I collected hugs and cheek kisses like party favors, a ritual of familial affection. Cousin Tyler wanted to know if I could offer his daughter some internship advice. Uncle George was eager to tell me about the sustainable bamboo flooring he'd installed after seeing it prominently featured in my catalog. Aunt Maureen desperately needed my opinion on starting an Etsy shop for her knitting. Normally, these conversations, these moments of genuine appreciation for my expertise, would energize me. Family members who actually recognized my hard work and acumen. Today, though, I felt profoundly disconnected, observing the party as if through a thick pane of glass, an outsider looking in. My eyes kept scanning the crowd for Natalie, anticipating whatever calculated maneuver she was planning. I spotted her near the drinks table, huddled in intense conversation with our cousin Rachel and Aunt Patricia. When Natalie caught me looking, she smiled with an almost blinding, false brightness and waved, then whispered something that made the other two look in my direction with pitying, knowing expressions. "Don't let her get to you." The voice, warm and familiar, came from directly behind me. I turned to find my cousin Emma offering me a refreshing glass of white wine. Emma was the only one in the entire family I had confided in about my recent business challenges. Emma ran a highly successful accounting firm and had even helped me restructure some debt. "Whatever she's planning," Emma murmured, her voice low and comforting, "it says more about her than about you." "I know," I sighed, accepting the drink gratefully, the cool liquid a small comfort. "I just wish I understood why she's like this. We're in our 30s, for God's sake. Shouldn't sibling rivalry have an expiration date?" Emma snorted a wry, knowing sound. "In functional families, maybe. But Natalie's built her entire identity around comparing herself to you. The fact that you're actually successful while she's still pretending to be makes it even worse." Our conversation was abruptly interrupted by my father's booming voice, calling everyone to the tables for lunch. I found my assigned seat directly across from Natalie. Of course, my mother's seating charts always seemed designed for maximum dramatic potential. Natalie was already holding court at our table, regaling anyone within earshot with a meticulously embellished account of her recent weekend trip to the Hamptons, courtesy of a friend whose name she conspicuously avoided mentioning, maintaining a vague air of mystery. Her outfit screamed, trying too hard, a designer dress that still had the security tag hastily removed, a telltale sign. She'd almost certainly wear it once and return it, and oversized sunglasses worth at least 2 of her car payments perched precariously on her head, an absurd accessory indoors. "Morgan," she exclaimed, her voice dripping with the exaggerated enthusiasm of someone performing for a captive audience, when I sat down. "I was just telling everyone about this amazing investment opportunity I've been considering. Real estate is where the real money is, don't you think?" The pointed question, delivered with a thinly veiled sneer, made my chest tighten involuntarily. Did she already know about the lake house? No, that was impossible. The paperwork wasn't even finalized yet. "It can be," I answered neutrally, carefully serving myself some potato salad, maintaining my composure. "If you know what you're doing." Natalie leaned forward, lowering her voice to a stage whisper, perfectly audible to everyone nearby. "Well, I've been doing some research on financial stability. It's so important to diversify before a major market downturn. Some businesses just aren't built to weather economic storms, you know." Several relatives shifted uncomfortably, clearly sensing the venomous barb hidden beneath her seemingly innocent words. I felt heat rising to my cheeks, but I maintained my poker face, taking a deliberate, slow sip of wine. I wouldn't give Natalie the satisfaction of a reaction, a flicker of emotion. The lunch progressed with increasing tension, the unspoken conflict palpable. I noticed more family members giving me those same pitying, sympathetic looks. Cousin Derek asked with suspicious casualness how business was going these days, while Aunt Patricia, with ill-concealed condescension, suggested she knew someone hiring administrative assistants if I was looking for something more stable. By the time dessert was served, I was mentally exhausted from maintaining my composure, from performing my own act of normalcy. I excused myself to the bathroom, needing a moment of blessed solitude. In the cool, quiet sanctuary of my parents' powder room, I checked my phone again. One new message. From the real estate agent, with an attachment. Paperwork ready for final signatures tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Congratulations on your new lake house. A strange, powerful calm settled over me. Whatever Natalie was planning, I now had certainty about my counterplay, my ace in the hole. I looked at myself in the mirror, a resolute gleam in my eyes, straightened my shoulders, and rejoined the party, ready for the final act. I found Uncle Robert near the dessert table, methodically working his way through a generous slice of my mother's famous blueberry pie, a connoisseur of comfort food. He had always been my favorite relative, a quiet, observant man who seemed to possess X-ray vision when it came to deciphering complex family dynamics. "Your sister's on a mission today," he commented as I approached, his voice a low rumble. It wasn't a question, but an observation. "Apparently so," I replied, selecting a brownie from the tempting spread. "Any idea what her big announcement is about?" Uncle Robert gave me a knowing look, a subtle twinkle in his eyes. "Nothing good, judging by how much whispering she's been doing. But I'll tell you something I learned in 40 years of marriage to your Aunt Linda. People who need to tear others down are standing on pretty shaky ground themselves." I smiled gratefully at him, a genuine, unforced smile. "I know. You're right. I just wish." The sharp clinking of metal against glass abruptly interrupted me. We turned to see Natalie standing at the head of the table, beaming with barely contained excitement, a silver spoon clutched in her hand, ready to command attention. "Everyone, could I have your attention, please?" she announced, her voice piercing the gentle hum of conversation. "I have something important to share with all of you." The sprawling backyard fell silent, all eyes turning toward Natalie, sensing the impending drama. She stood with perfect posture, her expression a masterclass in manufactured concern, a performance designed to elicit maximum sympathy. My heart pounded as I made my way back to my seat, already knowing, with a chilling certainty, what was coming, but powerless to stop it now. "First, I want to thank Mom and Dad for hosting another wonderful reunion," Natalie began, raising her glass in their direction, a saccharine gesture. My parents beamed, utterly oblivious to the impending betrayal. "Family is everything to me, which is why I feel it's so important to share when one of us is struggling." She paused dramatically, her eyes finding mine across the tables, a direct, theatrical hit. The artificial sympathy in her expression made my stomach churn with revulsion. "I'm sure many of you have noticed that our dear Morgan seems different today, more reserved than usual." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd, a testament to Natalie's persuasive performance. "Well, I think it's time we address the elephant in the room, because Morgan needs our support right now." I gripped my napkin under the table, my knuckles turning white, a silent struggle to maintain control. Emma, sitting nearby, shot me a concerned, empathetic look. "It breaks my heart to tell you all this," Natalie continued, her voice trembling with entirely fake emotion, a masterful portrayal of distress. "But Morgan's business has failed. She's filed for bankruptcy." The collective gasp from the relatives was exactly what Natalie had hoped for. Shocked faces turned toward me, some with genuine concern, others with barely concealed curiosity, their eyes wide with disbelief. The word bankruptcy hung in the air like a toxic, suffocating cloud, polluting the festive atmosphere. "I discovered the paperwork last week," Natalie added, conveniently omitting how she'd obtained this completely false, maliciously misinterpreted information. "She's lost everything, her inventory, her warehouse, even her business accounts. The bank is reviewing her personal assets now." My mother's hand flew to her mouth, a silent cry of distress. "Morgan, honey, is this true? Why didn't you tell us before?" Before I could even begin to formulate a response, Natalie jumped in again, seizing control of the narrative. "She was too ashamed, Mom. You know how proud she's always been about her little business, but we're family. There's no room for secrets or shame here." The twist of the knife was expertly executed, Natalie positioning herself as the caring, empathetic sister while simultaneously diminishing my decade of relentless hard work as a little business and violating my privacy in the most public, humiliating way possible. "Actually," I started to say, my voice tight with suppressed fury, but Natalie wasn't finished, relishing her moment in the spotlight. "I've already told her she can move into my spare bedroom until she gets back on her feet. I've also reached out to some contacts about potential job opportunities," her voice dripped with self-congratulatory generosity, a nauseating display of false altruism. "It might be good for her to experience working for someone else for a change. More stability, less pressure." A vivid flash of memory momentarily transported me from the backyard, back to 3 years earlier, when Natalie had been fired from yet another dead-end job. I had, out of genuine concern, offered her a position in my own company's customer service department. Natalie had laughed in my face, declaring she couldn't possibly work for her little sister, the very same sister she was now publicly humiliating while presenting herself as a benevolent savior. My father, his face flushed with a mixture of concern and confusion, stood up. "Morgan, why are we just hearing about this now? We could have helped." All eyes were on me, a spotlight of unwanted attention. The truth was simple, straightforward, and damning. There was no bankruptcy. Yes, my business had experienced temporary cash flow problems, a common hurdle in entrepreneurship, but we were already well on the path to recovery. The new supplier I'd secured was far better than the previous one, and my talented team had developed an innovative, cutting-edge marketing approach to overcome the recent algorithm changes, leading to robust new growth. But explaining all of this now in this charged atmosphere would sound defensive, like manufactured excuses in the face of public humiliation. I took a deep breath, marshaling my composure. "Thank you for your concern, everyone, but Natalie doesn't have all the facts." I kept my voice steady, remarkably calm, making deliberate eye contact with my sister, a silent challenge. "My business is going through some restructuring, but it's far from bankruptcy." "I appreciate the concern, but I'm handling it." Natalie's smug smile faltered slightly, but she recovered quickly, her determination to maintain the narrative unwavering. "Oh, Morgan, there's no need to put on a brave face. I've seen the paperwork. Chapter 11 bankruptcy isn't something you can just brush off." The specificity of her lie, naming Chapter 11 rather than the more generic Chapter 7, was a calculated move designed to lend credibility to her fabrication. Several relatives nodded, clearly believing Natalie's meticulously detailed knowledge over my vague denial. "Perhaps we should discuss this privately," I suggested, struggling to maintain my composure, to keep my voice even. "We're all family here," Natalie insisted, spreading her arms wide in a theatrical gesture. "There's nothing to be embarrassed about. Failure is part of life. Though some of us warned you about expanding too quickly." The blatant hypocrisy was infuriating. Natalie had never warned me about anything of the sort. In fact, she had repeatedly criticized me for being too cautious with growth, for not taking enough risks. The brazen rewriting of history was infuriating, an insult to my intelligence. I excused myself quietly and walked toward the house, feeling dozens of curious, pitying eyes on my back, a silent weight of judgment. Inside, in the cool, quiet sanctuary of my parents' kitchen, I leaned against the counter and took several deep, calming breaths. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Want me to accidentally spill wine on her designer dress? Despite everything, a small, genuine smile touched my lips. Then another text arrived. This one from the real estate agent, with an attachment. Final contract for your review before tomorrow's signing. Uncle Robert appeared in the doorway, his kind eyes full of gentle concern. Your sister's quite the performer, he said, his voice a low rumble, closing the door behind him to give us privacy. She certainly has a flair for drama, I agreed, putting my phone away. He settled into one of the kitchen chairs, gesturing for me to join him. You know, I've watched you two since you were little girls. Natalie's always been the peacock, all flash and noise. But you, Morgan, you're the owl. Quiet, observant, smarter than people realize. I smiled weakly, the compliment a small balm. Not smart enough to avoid this ambush, apparently. I don't believe for a second that you're bankrupt, he said firmly, his conviction unwavering. But even if you were, so what? You think any of us would love you less? Success isn't what makes you valuable to this family. His words touched something deep within me, resonating with a truth I had long overlooked. For years, I had meticulously defined myself in opposition to Natalie. Natalie was flashy, so I was understated. Natalie was impulsive, so I was strategic. Perhaps I'd been so focused on not being like her that I'd missed opportunities to simply be myself, to embrace my own unique strengths without constant comparison. Thank you, I said quietly, my voice thick with emotion. That means a lot. So, what's your plan? He asked, his eyes twinkling knowingly. Because I know Morgan Reynolds well enough to know she's got one. I hesitated, then nodded, a resolute gleam in my eyes. I do. And it happens tomorrow morning. Good, he said, standing up, his tone approving. Now let's get back out there before your mother organizes a fundraiser for your non-existent bankruptcy. We returned to the backyard, where Natalie was still holding court, now detailing her generous plans to help me rebuild her life, a grotesque charade. I took my seat and ate a piece of pie, letting Natalie's words wash over me like an unpleasant but harmless current. Tomorrow would come soon enough, bringing with it a profound shift. The remainder of the reunion unfolded like an extended nightmare. What should have been a joyful family gathering had transformed into Morgan's bankruptcy intervention, a public spectacle of humiliation. Relatives I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly transformed into unsolicited financial advisors, approaching me with business cards for entry-level positions and disheartening stories about their friends who had supposedly bounced back after complete financial ruin. Aunt Diane cornered me by the lemonade table. Have you considered multi-level marketing? She chirped, her eyes gleaming with predatory enthusiasm. My neighbor's daughter makes 6 figures selling essential oils. She pressed a glossy pamphlet into my hand before I could even respond. Cousin Greg, a man who had famously failed at 3 businesses himself, inexplicably offered to look over my financials and suggest where I went wrong. The irony, it seemed, was completely lost on him. Uncle Stephen provided a lengthy, detailed explanation of unemployment benefits, speaking slowly and deliberately as if I might not grasp the basic concept of government assistance. Through it all, Natalie floated around the gathering, a phantom of false sympathy, alternating between expressions of exaggerated concern when near me and barely concealed satisfaction when she thought I wasn't looking, a master manipulator at work. She had meticulously positioned herself as both the bearer of difficult truths and my potential savior, a masterful manipulation that painted her as the mature, successful sister stepping in to rescue her struggling sibling. Morgan, I've been thinking about your wardrobe, she announced loudly, as several aunts listened nearby, their heads cocked. When you move in with me, we can go through my closet. I have some professional outfits that would be perfect for job interviews. The suggestion that I, with my closet full of higher quality, if less flashy, clothing, would need Natalie's hand-me-downs was deliberately demeaning, a calculated insult. I smiled tightly, my jaw clenched, and excused myself. My parents, to their credit, seemed genuinely uncertain what to believe, caught between their daughters. My mother kept bringing me extra portions of food, as if financial problems might have left me malnourished, while my father awkwardly mentioned that his retirement fund was in good shape if emergency cash was needed. Their concern was genuine, but their willingness to accept Natalie's fabricated story without question hurt almost as much as Natalie's blatant betrayal. As afternoon faded into evening and tiki torches were lit around the yard, casting flickering, orange light, I found myself sitting alone on the old wooden swing at the edge of the property. The very same swing where I'd retreated as a child when Natalie's relentless taunting became too much, a silent sanctuary. Some patterns, I reflected, simply never change. Mind if I join you? I looked up to see my cousin Emma, holding 2 glasses of wine, her eyes understanding. I shifted over on the swing, making room, and Emma settled beside me, handing me one of the glasses, a silent offering of solidarity. Remember when we were kids and Natalie told everyone at Christmas that you still wet the bed? Emma asked after a moment of silence, a wry smile playing on her lips. I groaned at the memory, a visceral recoil. I was 9, and she had all the adults checking if my sheets were dry every morning for the rest of the visit. And do you remember what happened the next summer? A genuine smile tugged at my lips, a rare moment of shared amusement. She got poison ivy from that secret fort she built in the woods after I casually mentioned that poison ivy has 3 leaves. Emma clinked her glass against mine, a quiet toast. You've always played the long game, Morgan. That's why I'm not worried about you now. My phone vibrated with an incoming call. Natalie's name flashed on the screen. Speaking of the devil, I muttered, declining the call. Within seconds, Natalie appeared at the edge of the lawn, spotting us on the swing. Her determined walk in our direction made Emma whisper, "Incoming drama at 3 o'clock," before excusing herself with a supportive squeeze of my arm. Natalie took the vacated spot, her designer dress incongruous on the rustic swing, a stark contrast between her manufactured image and the simple setting. Up close, I could see the strain beneath Natalie's perfect makeup, tiny lines of tension around her eyes, the slightly too rigid smile. "You're avoiding me," Natalie said, feigning hurt, her voice dripping with false concern. "Can you blame me?" I retorted, my voice flat. "Don't be so sensitive, Morgan. I was just being honest with the family. They deserve to know." I turned to face her directly, my gaze unwavering. "Know what, exactly? That you went through my private papers without permission, misinterpreted what you found, and decided to announce your flawed conclusions to the entire extended family without speaking to me first? Is that the honesty you're defending?" Natalie's eyes narrowed slightly, a flicker of resentment. "I saw the bankruptcy forms, Morgan. Stop trying to save face. What you saw were contingency documents my lawyer prepared as a worst-case scenario. They were never filed. My business had a setback, not a failure." For a moment, doubt flickered across Natalie's face, a brief crack in her facade, but she quickly recovered. "Well, the family needed to know either way. I'm just looking out for you. I've already told everyone you can stay with me until you get back on your feet. My spare room is small, but it's better than nothing, which is apparently what you have now." The calculated cruelty of her words struck me like a physical blow, a deliberate assault. This wasn't just about embarrassing me. Natalie wanted to see me dependent, diminished in the family's eyes, while she played the generous, magnanimous protector. "I'm not moving in with you, Natalie. My business is fine, my house is fine, and my life is fine without your intervention." Natalie stood up, smoothing her dress with manicured hands, an act of regaining composure. "We'll see about that. I've already told everyone we're meeting with a financial advisor on Monday to discuss your options. I'm not letting you push away help because of pride. As she walked away, a new text notification buzzed on my phone. It was from Natalie, sent to the entire family group chat. So worried about Morgan. She's in denial about her situation. If anyone has job leads for her, please send them my way, since she's too proud to ask directly. I stared at the message, watching as a flurry of sympathetic responses poured in from relatives. The public performance continued, even as the party wound down. The depth of Natalie's desperate need to see me humbled, utterly dependent, was staggering. Later, as I helped my mother clean up the kitchen, she approached the subject cautiously. "Honey, about what Natalie said. Is it really as bad as she's making it sound?" I placed the serving dishes I'd been washing on the drying rack and turned to face my mother. "Mom, do you really think if I were filing for bankruptcy, you'd hear about it from Natalie at a family reunion?" My mother had the grace to look embarrassed, her cheeks coloring slightly. "I suppose not, but she seemed so certain. And you've been so quiet lately." My business had some challenges with a supplier, but we're already recovering. What Natalie did today was share private information, incorrectly, I might add, without my permission. And instead of asking me directly, everyone just assumed she was telling the truth. My mother dried her hands on a kitchen towel, her expression troubled. "You know how Natalie gets. She's always been sensitive about your success." The familiar, tired pattern of excusing Natalie's behavior, of enabling her manipulations, made my jaw clench. "That's not sensitivity, Mom. It's cruelty." Before my mother could respond, my phone rang. It was the real estate agent. I excused myself and stepped onto the back porch to take the call. "Morgan, great news. All the paperwork is processed. We're confirmed for 9 a.m. tomorrow to finalize everything. The owners have already moved out, so you'll get the keys right after signing." As I ended the call, I noticed Natalie watching me from across the yard, her eyes narrowed with suspicion, her curiosity piqued. In that moment, I made my final decision. The lake house wouldn't just be an investment property. It would be the setting for a long overdue, brutally honest conversation between sisters, a reckoning that had been building for decades. You won't believe how this confrontation plays out. Sunday morning dawned bright and clear, the kind of perfect summer day that makes New England famous, a picture of idyllic tranquility. I woke early, despite having tossed and turned all night in my childhood bedroom. My parents had insisted I stay over after the reunion, genuinely concerned about my emotional state following Natalie's public announcement. I dressed carefully in a crisp white button-down and navy slacks, professional but not showy. The outfit was a deliberate choice, one that subtly conveyed successful businesswoman without screaming for attention. As I applied minimal makeup, I meticulously rehearsed what I would say to Natalie. This wasn't about revenge, not anymore. It was about boundaries and truth, about finally reclaiming my narrative. Downstairs, I found my father at the kitchen table, engrossed in his customary Sunday crossword puzzle. He looked up when I entered, surprise registering at my attire. "You're dressed up for a Sunday morning," he commented, setting down his pen. "I have a meeting," I explained, pouring myself a cup of coffee. A business opportunity that couldn't wait. He studied me for a moment, his gaze searching. "Morgan, about yesterday. Your mother and I are worried. If things are difficult financially, we want to help. No judgment." I sat across from him, wrapping my hands around the warm mug, drawing comfort from its heat. "Dad, I need you to hear me clearly. I am not filing for bankruptcy. My business had a temporary cash flow issue that's already resolving itself. What Natalie told everyone yesterday was both incorrect and a blatant invasion of my privacy." His expression shifted from concern to confusion. "But she said she saw the paperwork. She saw preliminary documents my lawyer prepared as a contingency plan, which is standard business practice during financial restructuring. Those papers were never filed. If you don't believe me, you're welcome to call my accountant tomorrow." My father looked down at his crossword, embarrassment coloring his face, a blush of shame. "I should have asked you directly." "Yes, you should have. I agreed, my voice gentle but firm, unwavering. For 35 years, you and Mom have given Natalie the benefit of the doubt while expecting me to be the bigger person. I'm tired of it, Dad. The silence between us stretched, heavy with decades of unaddressed family dynamics, unspoken resentments, and a profound imbalance. Finally, he nodded, a slow, solemn acknowledgement. You're right. We've enabled her difficulties with you. I'm sorry, Morgan. His acknowledgement, however belated, was something I hadn't realized I needed so desperately. I reached across the table and squeezed his hand, a gesture of forgiveness and connection. Thank you. So, what's this meeting about? He asked, clearly trying to change the subject to safer territory. I smiled. A property investment. Actually, I should get going. I'm meeting the agent at 9 o'clock. As I gathered my purse and keys, my phone buzzed with a group text from Natalie to the entire family. Taking Morgan to brunch today to discuss next steps. We'll update everyone on her situation later. So grateful for all your support during her difficult time. The audacity was breathtaking. I hadn't agreed to any brunch. Yet, Natalie was continuing the narrative of herself as my caretaker, my savior. I texted back quickly. Actually, I have a meeting this morning. Rain check. Natalie's response was immediate, almost frantic. What meeting? Financial advisors don't work Sundays. Stop avoiding help. Rather than engaging further in the toxic group chat, I sent her a private message. Meet me at 10:30 at the Starbucks on Lakeshore Drive in Winnipesaukee. We need to talk. I could almost feel Natalie's satisfaction radiating through the phone. She undoubtedly thought I was finally admitting defeat and seeking her benevolent help. Her reply was sugary sweet, dripping with feigned sympathy. Of course, sis. I'll be there to support you. The drive to Lake Winnipesaukee took just under 2 hours. I used the time to center myself, occasionally glancing at the folder of closing documents resting on my passenger seat, the physical manifestation of my imminent triumph. By the time I arrived at the real estate office, I felt remarkably calm and focused, my mind clear. The closing process was remarkably straightforward, almost anticlimactic. I signed my name dozens of times, initialed countless pages, and transferred the largest sum of money I'd ever moved in one single transaction, a monumental financial act. When it was finally done, the agent handed me 3 sets of gleaming keys. Congratulations, Ms. Reynolds, he said, a genuine smile on his face. The lake house is officially yours. I drove the short distance to the property, pulling into the circular driveway of what was now, unequivocally, my vacation home. The realtor hadn't exaggerated. It was stunning, truly breathtaking. The 2-story cedar and stone structure faced the lake, with a sprawling wraparound porch and magnificent floor-to-ceiling windows capturing the breathtaking water views. A private dock extended gracefully into the clear blue lake, with a charming small boathouse at its end. I unlocked the front door and stepped inside, the cool, quiet air a balm to my senses. Hardwood floors gleamed in the sunlight streaming through the windows. The previous owners had left some tasteful furniture. A massive stone fireplace dominated the great room, flanked by built-in bookshelves and comfortable seating. The kitchen featured high-end appliances and gleaming granite countertops. Upstairs, the master suite offered panoramic lake views and a spa-like bathroom, a sanctuary of luxury. It was exactly as Natalie had described it countless times over the past 3 years, her dream home, the one she would definitely buy someday when she got her big break. I walked through each room slowly, taking mental inventory, absorbing every detail. Though the purchase had been partly motivated by a desire to teach Natalie a long overdue lesson, I was surprised by how much I genuinely loved the property. It was peaceful here, a tranquil oasis. The kind of place where I could truly relax, unwind, and escape the relentless demands of my business. At 10:15 a.m., I texted Natalie, change of plans. Meet me at 145 Lakeshore Drive instead of Starbucks. Where is that? Natalie replied immediately, a hint of confusion in her tone. Just put it in your GPS. See you soon. I made a fresh pot of coffee and brought 2 mugs out to the porch swing overlooking the lake. The morning sun danced across the water, casting shimmering reflections, and a light breeze carried the intoxicating scent of pine and fresh water. Despite the impending confrontation, I felt a profound sense of peace, a quiet calm before the storm. At precisely 10:42 a.m., Natalie was perpetually late. I heard a car pull into the driveway. Through the trees, I spotted Natalie's red BMW convertible, a symbol of her illusory success, coming to a stop behind my reliable Honda. Natalie emerged, looking utterly confused, checking her phone as if confirming the address. Her confusion deepened visibly as she approached the house, taking in the expansive property with a puzzled expression. When she spotted me on the porch swing, her perfectly shaped eyebrows drew together in a frown. "Morgan, what are you doing here? Whose house is this?" She climbed the porch steps, her designer sunglasses perched incongruously on her head, looking wildly out of place in her brunch-appropriate outfit, a comical juxtaposition. I gestured to the swing beside me. "Have a seat." "Coffee?" Natalie remained standing, looking increasingly perplexed, her confusion bordering on agitation. "Seriously, Morgan, what is this place? Are you house-sitting for someone?" I took a slow, deliberate sip of my coffee, savoring the exquisite moment, the sweet taste of impending victory. "You don't recognize it? That's surprising, considering how many times you've talked about it being your dream home." Natalie's eyes widened suddenly as recognition, a chilling dawning, spread across her face. She spun around, taking in the property with new, horrified awareness. This is the lake house. The one that sold 3 years ago. It went back on the market last month," I supplied calmly. "Divorce sale." I held out a set of keys, their metallic gleam a powerful symbol of ownership. "Would you like to see inside?" Natalie stared at the keys, then at me, comprehension slowly, painfully, replacing her confusion. You bought this house? How? You're bankrupt." And there it was. The explicit admission that Natalie knew her public announcement at the reunion had been a malicious, calculated lie. "That's what I wanted to talk to you about, Natalie. I'm not bankrupt. I never was." Natalie stood frozen on the porch, her gaze darting frantically between the keys in my hand and my calm, resolute face. The carefully constructed narrative she'd meticulously created, of her successful self rescuing her failing, pathetic sister, was crumbling before her very eyes, dissolving into dust. "But I saw the paperwork," she insisted, her voice losing its usual confident edge, a hint of desperation creeping in. "The bankruptcy forms were contingency documents, never filed." I set the keys on the small table between us, a tangible symbol of my truth. "My business had a temporary cash flow issue when a supplier went bankrupt. We're already back on track with a better supplier and a stronger marketing strategy. We're thriving, Natalie." Natalie sank onto the porch swing beside me, her designer purse clutched tightly in her lap like a shield, her usual composure utterly shattered. "So you're not moving in with me?" "No, Natalie. I never was." "But why did you let me tell everyone let you?" I interrupted, feeling a surge of the anger I'd suppressed yesterday, a righteous indignation. "You went through my private papers without permission, jumped to incorrect conclusions, and announced false information to our entire family without ever speaking to me directly." "I didn't let you do anything." Natalie had the grace to look momentarily embarrassed, a fleeting flicker of shame, but it quickly shifted to defensiveness. "I was worried about you. I was trying to help." "Were you?" I challenged, my voice piercing. "Or were you enjoying watching me squirm while positioning yourself as the generous, successful sister?" Natalie's silence was answer enough, a deafening admission of guilt. I continued, my voice softening, but firm. "Natalie, we need to talk about this pattern between us. It's been going on since we were children, and I've let it continue by staying quiet, by always being the bigger person. That ends today." Natalie looked out over the lake, avoiding my gaze, her eyes fixed on the distant horizon. What pattern? You're the one who's always been perfect. The smart one, the responsible one, the successful entrepreneur. Do you have any idea what it's like living in your shadow? The irony of her statement was almost laughable, a bitter, twisted humor. My shadow, Natalie? You've spent our entire adult lives positioning yourself as more successful than me, taking credit for my achievements, dismissing my business as a little project, and constantly one-upping me with material possessions you can barely afford. That's not true. Natalie's protest sounded hollow, even to her own ears, judging by her expression, a desperate, futile attempt at self-deception. Isn't it? Let's look at yesterday. You had the perfect opportunity to check in with me privately about those documents you found. Instead, you chose to announce it to the entire family in the most humiliating way possible. Why? Natalie stared at her perfectly manicured nails, uncharacteristically silent, her usual bravado gone. I continued carefully, choosing my words with precision. It's because you've built your entire identity around being seen as more successful than me. When you found those papers, you saw an opportunity to cement that perception once and for all, to solidify your place at the top. A single tear slipped down Natalie's cheek, leaving a faint, shimmering trail in her perfect makeup, a crack in the carefully constructed facade. It's not fair, she whispered, her voice raw with a sudden, uncharacteristic vulnerability. You make everything look so easy. The business, the investments, all of it. You never struggle, never fail. That's not true, Natalie. I struggle all the time. The difference is that I don't measure my worth by comparing myself to you. I handed her a tissue from my pocket, a small gesture of unexpected kindness. And for the record, buying this house was financially risky. I liquidated a significant portion of my emergency fund and investments to make it happen. Natalie dabbed at her eyes, careful not to smudge her mascara. Then why did you do it? I gestured at the breathtaking lake view, the shimmering water, the expansive property. Partly as an investment. Lakefront property in New Hampshire holds value extremely well. It's a solid financial move. I paused, deciding to be completely, brutally honest, to lay bare my true motivations. And partly to prove a point. When I saw it was for sale, something in me snapped. After years of hearing you talk about your dream house while simultaneously undermining my success, I wanted to show you that actions have consequences. That there are repercussions for cruelty. To my surprise, a small, genuine laugh escaped Natalie, a sound I hadn't heard in years. That's actually pretty badass, Morgan. Petty, but badass. The unexpected moment of genuine amusement between us, a shared laugh, broke some of the suffocating tension that had hung between us for decades. I smiled despite myself. I prefer to think of it as a valuable lesson in boundaries. So, what now? Natalie asked, gesturing around them, her voice tinged with a new, hesitant uncertainty. You bought a house to spite me. Are you going to let me visit, or is this your way of cutting me out of your life? It was the very question I'd been asking myself since making the audacious offer on the property. That depends on you, Natalie. I didn't buy this house just to keep you out of it. I bought it because I'm tired of the dynamic between us, and something needed to change, profoundly. I stood up and walked to the porch railing, looking out over the tranquil water, my gaze distant. The truth is, I miss my sister. Not the person who humiliates me at family gatherings or takes credit for my achievements, but the girl who used to make me laugh until milk came out my nose at breakfast. The one who taught me how to French braid my hair and stayed up all night with me when I was scared during thunderstorms. When I turned back, Natalie was watching me with an expression I hadn't seen in years, raw vulnerability, devoid of calculation, devoid of pretense. I miss her too, she said quietly, her voice barely a whisper. Then let's try something new, I suggested, extending an olive branch. Complete honesty, starting now. Why did you announce my supposed bankruptcy to the family? Natalie sighed deeply, setting her designer purse aside. its material luxury suddenly seeming trivial. Because I'm drowning, Morgan. My credit cards are maxed out. I'm 3 months behind on my car payments. The department store put me on performance review because my sales numbers are down. Nothing in my life is working. Her voice cracked, heavy with despair. And then I found those papers and thought, finally, something where I'm doing better than Morgan. The raw, unfiltered admission hung between us, a profound, almost shocking truth. It was perhaps the first completely honest thing Natalie had said to me in years, a moment of startling clarity. "Thank you for telling me that," I said softly, my anger now replaced by a quiet compassion. "Why didn't you just ask me for help? Because I'm supposed to be the successful one." The words burst out of her, a torrent of suppressed insecurity. "I'm the older sister. I'm supposed to have it all figured out by now. How could I admit that my little sister has a real business while I'm still folding sweaters at a department store at 37? I sat back down beside her. "Natalie, success isn't just about money or job titles. And it's definitely not a competition between sisters. It never was." "Easy for you to say when you're winning," Natalie muttered, but without real malice this time, just a hint of lingering bitterness. "Am I?" I countered gently. "I work 70-hour weeks. I haven't taken a real vacation in 5 years. My last relationship ended because I was always at the office. There are plenty of ways I'm not winning at life." Natalie looked genuinely surprised, as if the idea that my life wasn't a perfect, flawless existence had never once occurred to her. "I guess we both created narratives about each other that aren't completely true." "Exactly. So here's my proposal. This house has 5 bedrooms. One of them is mine. Another could be yours, on some conditions." Natalie's eyes widened, a flicker of hope. "You'd let me use the lake house after what I did?" "If," I emphasized, my voice firm, "you agreed to some ground rules. First, no more public humiliation or taking credit for my achievements. Second, we start being honest with each other about our finances, our struggles, everything. Third, you tell the family the truth about your announcement yesterday." Natalie winced at the last condition, her face paling. "They'll think I'm terrible. They'll think you made a mistake, Natalie. And if you own it, they'll respect your honesty. More importantly, you'll respect yourself." Natalie considered this, then nodded slowly, a profound decision etched on her face. "And in return, I get to use this gorgeous house sometimes?" "More than that," I said. "You get a chance for us to be real sisters again, not competitors. And then, a final, crucial offer. I'll help you get your finances under control if you want. No judgment, just practical support, the kind of help you actually need." For a moment, I thought Natalie might reject the offer out of ingrained pride. Then her shoulders relaxed, and for the first time in years, I saw my actual sister, the girl I remembered, not the performative facade she usually put on. "I'd like that," Natalie said simply, her voice soft with gratitude. I extended my hand. "Then we have a deal." Natalie ignored my hand and pulled me into a tight hug instead, a powerful, unexpected embrace. "Deal," she whispered against my shoulder, her voice muffled by emotion. As we separated, I picked up the keys from the table and placed them in her hand. "Why don't you give yourself the tour? I'll make some more coffee." While Natalie explored the house, exclaiming over features she'd coveted for years, I called my parents. It was time for the family to hear the truth from both of us. 2 weeks after the chaotic family reunion, we gathered again, this time at the lake house. The invitation had gone out to the entire extended family, surprising everyone with its joint signature, "Morgan and Natalie Reynolds request the pleasure of your company." The spacious great room was filled with relatives, many still clearly confused about what exactly was happening. My parents arrived first, my mother's eyes widening as she took in the magnificent property. "Morgan, it's stunning," she breathed, walking straight to the wall of windows overlooking the tranquil lake. "But I don't understand. When did you buy this?" "The morning after the reunion," I explained, accepting my mother's hug. I'd been in negotiations for a few weeks before that. My father examined the exquisite craftsmanship of the built-in bookshelves with appreciation. Not exactly the purchase I'd expect from someone filing for bankruptcy, he commented wryly. About that, I began, but was interrupted by Natalie's arrival. She entered carrying a tray of appetizers she'd prepared herself, another surprise for anyone who knew my sister's usual aversion to cooking. She had dressed differently today, still stylish, but noticeably less flashy than her usual attire. The designer sunglasses and statement jewelry were conspicuously absent. As more relatives arrived, a tangible sense of curiosity filled the room, a hushed anticipation. Uncle Robert caught my eye from across the space and gave me an approving nod, a silent message of support. Emma arrived with a bottle of champagne, whispering, "For the show I'm about to witness," as she handed it to me. When everyone had arrived, Natalie clinked a glass for attention. The room fell silent, many clearly expecting another dramatic announcement, another public performance. She looked momentarily nervous, then squared her shoulders, a newfound resolve in her posture. "Thank you all for coming," she began, her voice steadying. "I asked you here today because I owe you, and especially Morgan, an apology." The surprise in the room was palpable. Natalie Reynolds did not apologize. Ever. At the family reunion, I told you all that Morgan had filed for bankruptcy. That was untrue. Her voice trembled slightly, a hint of her vulnerability, but she continued, bravely pushing through. "I found some contingency paperwork her lawyer had prepared during a business restructuring, jumped to conclusions, and then I chose to announce those conclusions publicly without discussing it with her first." My mother gasped softly, her hand flying to her mouth again. Aunt Patricia whispered something to Uncle George, but Natalie wasn't finished. "The truth is, Morgan's business had a temporary setback that she was already resolving successfully. She is not bankrupt. Not even close. In fact, she gestured around them, a sweeping motion that encompassed the stunning lake house. She purchased this lake house the very next morning." Murmurs of confusion and surprise rippled through the gathering, a collective intake of breath. "I think many of you know this is the property I've talked about wanting for years," Natalie continued, her voice gaining strength, imbued with a newfound honesty. "When Morgan bought it, I initially felt, well, angry and jealous, to be honest. But it made me realize something important. The competitiveness between us has been mostly driven by me, and it needs to stop. Completely." I stepped forward to stand beside her, a united front for perhaps the first time in our adult lives, a silent testament to our burgeoning reconciliation. "We wanted to invite you all here today," I added, my voice clear, "to clear the air and start fresh. This house isn't about rivalry or revenge. It's going to be a gathering place for our family." Natalie nodded, a genuine smile gracing her lips. "Morgan has generously offered to let me use it too, despite my behavior. That's the kind of sister she's always been, the kind I want to become." The authenticity of her words touched something deep within me. This wasn't the performative Natalie I'd grown used to. This was my actual sister, vulnerable and genuine, stripped of pretense. My father was the first to respond, clearing his throat emotionally, his eyes shining with unshed tears. "I think I speak for everyone when I say we're proud of both of you. This kind of honesty takes courage, Natalie." The tension in the room dissolved into relieved conversation, a ripple of understanding. Relatives approached us, some to express support, others to sheepishly admit they'd been too quick to believe the bankruptcy story. Uncle Robert gave each of us a bear hug, whispering about time, in my ear, a testament to the healing process. In the months that followed, change didn't happen overnight. Old habits occasionally resurfaced. Natalie sometimes slipped into competitiveness, and I sometimes withdrew rather than confronting issues directly. But the foundation had irrevocably shifted, strengthened by honesty and mutual respect. With my guidance, Natalie developed her first real budget and began addressing her crippling debt, a difficult but necessary step towards financial independence. She found a new job in retail management that better utilized her innate people skills and keen fashion knowledge. She still loved beautiful things, but began to understand the profound difference between true quality and simply showing off, a subtle but significant shift in values. My business not only recovered but thrived with the new supplier relationships. The innovative marketing strategy developed during our crisis period turned out to be even more effective than our previous approach, leading to our most profitable quarter ever, a testament to my resilience and ingenuity. The lake house became exactly what I'd hoped, a sanctuary for family healing and reconnection. My parents celebrated their 40th anniversary there, surrounded by loved ones. Cousins brought their children for lively summer weekends, filling the house with laughter. Natalie and I established a new tradition of monthly sister weekends, gradually, patiently rebuilding our relationship, conversation by honest conversation, one step at a time. During one such weekend, as we sat on the dock, watching the sunset paint the sky with vibrant hues, Natalie turned to me. "You know, you could have used this house to punish me. You had every right to, after what I did." I considered this, dipping my toes into the cool lake water, the ripples spreading gently. "That was never the goal, Natalie. I was angry when I made the offer, yes, and perhaps a little vindictive. But deep down, I think I was trying to break the pattern we'd been stuck in for decades, to shatter the cycle of resentment." "Well, it worked," Natalie said with a small, genuine laugh. "Nothing bursts a person's superiority bubble quite like watching their bankrupt sister buy their dream house." "The funny thing is," I admitted, a thoughtful expression on my face, "this house has become more meaningful than I ever expected. Not because it's beautiful or valuable, but because it's where we finally started being honest with each other." Natalie nodded thoughtfully, her gaze fixed on the fading light. "I've been thinking about what you said months ago, about measuring worth by comparing yourself to others. I've done that my whole life, not just with you. It's exhausting. And ultimately, it's empty. The constant comparison never leads to happiness," I agreed softly. "I'm learning that," Natalie said quietly, a profound admission. Slowly, as the sun dipped below the tree line, casting golden reflections across the tranquil lake, I realized the property had given me something far more valuable than mere real estate equity. It had given me back my sister, a true connection forged in the fires of adversity. It had also taught me that sometimes the most powerful, most transformative response to hurt isn't revenge, or even simple forgiveness. It's creating an opportunity for profound transformation, for growth and healing. The bankruptcy announcement that was meant to publicly humiliate me had instead become the unexpected catalyst for healing our family's oldest, most painful wound. In trying to publicly diminish me, Natalie had unknowingly set us both on a path to something far better than superficial success, a path to authenticity, to genuine connection, to a sisterhood finally freed from the shackles of rivalry. That evening, as family members gathered around the fire pit, sharing stories and laughter, their faces illuminated by the dancing flames, I looked around. The journey from hurt to healing hadn't been simple or straightforward, but standing on the other side, in this place of peace and reconciliation, I wouldn't change a single moment of it. What's your experience with family rivalries? Have you ever had a turning point that transformed a difficult relationship? Share your stories in the comments below. And if this tale of sisterhood and redemption resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Thank you for being part of this journey. And remember, sometimes the path to healing begins with the very moment designed to break us.